It was December 10th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m. when crushing insomnia and a spiritual restlessness I couldn't name drove me to the snow-covered mountain pass just outside Jasper, and there, surrounded by ice crystal silence and the impossibly green curtains of aurora borealis pulsing across the star-scattered darkness like the very breath of God made visible, Jesus stood before me on that frozen ridge and whispered with tears streaming down his face that most of his followers are rushing past the only moment that could actually save them. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. Yes, marked. Before you even clicked on this video, before you even saw the title, something in your spirit responded. Something said stop, something said listen. And that wasn't me. That wasn't an algorithm. That was him. I'm Jonathan Roumie. You know me as the one who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. And I need to tell you something with complete transparency. Playing Jesus doesn't make me Jesus. It doesn't make me holy. It doesn't give me special access to God. But what happened to me over 3 consecutive nights in that mountain pass, what I witnessed, what he showed me, what he said to me while the northern lights danced overhead and the temperature dropped to -15 degrees, that changed everything I thought I understood about urgency, about time, about the word wait. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something. I need you to leave your prayer requests in the comments. Not because I have power, I don't. Not because I'm some intermediary, I'm not. But because I've learned something about corporate prayer, about agreement, about what happens when believers actually stop and create space together. Leave your prayer requests. I'll read every single one. And if you're a true believer, if you're not just here out of curiosity, but because something in your spirit is burning right now, subscribe to this channel. This isn't about numbers. This is about identifying the remnant. This is about finding the ones who will actually stop when Jesus says stop. Let me take you back to that night, to 2:47 a.m. on December 10th. I couldn't sleep. For 3 days I'd been wrestling with something I couldn't articulate, a holy anxiety, a sense that I was missing something crucial, something hidden in plain sight. I'd been praying, but my prayers felt like noise. I'd been reading scripture, but the words seemed to slide off the surface of my mind. And in my frustration, I'd gotten in my car and driven, just driven. No destination, no plan, until I found myself on that mountain pass. I don't even remember making the conscious decision to stop the car, but suddenly I was outside and the cold hit me like a wall. That kind of cold that stings your nostrils when you breathe, that makes your eyes water, that penetrates every layer of clothing within seconds, the kind of cold that wakes you up, that makes you present, that strips away every distraction. Above me, the northern lights were in full display, ribbons of green and pale purple undulating across the dome of the sky like silk curtains caught in an unfelt wind. I'd seen pictures, I'd seen videos, but standing there, directly underneath them, watching them pulse and shift and dance, there are no words. It was as if the barrier between heaven and earth had grown thin, as if I could see the very fabric of creation breathing. The snow under my boots was pristine, untouched. Every step I took produced that particular crunch squeak that only happens in extremely cold, dry snow. My breath formed clouds that hung in the air for seconds before dissipating. The silence was absolute, not peaceful, absolute. The kind of silence that has weight, that has presence, that presses against your eardrums. I walked maybe 50 yards from the car, following an instinct I didn't understand, until I reached a small clearing where the pass widened slightly. On my left, the mountain rose sharply, dark pines heavy with snow creating jagged silhouettes against the star-filled sky. On my right, the land fell away into a valley I could only sense rather than see, a vast darkness that suggested depth, distance, space. And that's when I felt him. Not saw, felt. It started as warmth. In that -15-degree cold, warmth bloomed in the center of my chest, then a presence behind me, not threatening, but undeniable. The kind of presence that makes every hair on your body stand up, that makes your heart hammer, that floods your system with adrenaline and awe in equal measure. I turned. He was standing there. I know how this sounds. I know the skepticism that just rose up in some of you. I know the theological objections forming in your mind. I don't care. I'm telling you what happened. He was standing there and he was weeping, not sobbing, not wailing, but tears, actual tears, reflecting the green light of the aurora streaming down his face in the cold, and his eyes, God help me, His eyes were fixed on me with such intensity, such love, such grief, that my knees buckled and I went down into the snow. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was somehow both a whisper and the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It seemed to come from inside my chest, from the air around me, from the mountains themselves. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed. All I could do was kneel there in the snow, staring up at him while the northern lights pulsed overhead. "Do you know what I'm asking of them?" he said. His voice was breaking. "Do you know what single thing I'm begging them to give me?" I shook my head. Tears were freezing on my own face now. "1 minute," he said. 60 seconds. I'm asking them to wait, to stop, to give me 1 minute of true stillness, and they can't do it. They won't do it. They're rushing past the very moment I've prepared for their salvation, their healing, their deliverance. They're rushing past it because they can't wait." He stepped closer. The snow didn't crunch under his feet. The northern lights seemed to intensify, the green deepening to an almost emerald brilliance. "They pray while they scroll," he continued. "They worship while they multitask. They seek my face while planning their next move. And they wonder why they can't hear me. They wonder why breakthrough doesn't come. They wonder why they feel distant from me." He knelt down in the snow in front of me. We were eye to eye now. And what I saw in his face was so raw, so painful, that I had to look away. "Look at me," he said gently. "Please, Jonathan, look at me." I forced my eyes back to his. "I'm not asking for hours," he said. "I'm not asking them to become monks. I'm not asking them to abandon their responsibilities. I'm asking for 60 seconds of undivided attention, 1 minute where they stop, where they wait, where they actually create space for me to move. And that 1 minute, that single minute, contains the breakthrough they've been begging me for." The wind picked up suddenly, sending snow crystals swirling around us like a veil. But inside that small space where we knelt facing each other, there was perfect stillness. "Show me," I whispered. "Show me what you mean." He placed his hand over my heart, and the vision came. I saw a woman, mid-30s, standing in her kitchen, morning light streaming through the window. She was praying, actually praying, words of intercession for her marriage, for her husband, for breakthrough, but her eyes were on her phone, scrolling through social media, liking posts, reading headlines, and I watched as words from heaven, actual words of knowledge, of direction, of specific instruction, descended toward her like golden light and bounced off. They couldn't penetrate, the frequency was wrong. She was transmitting, but not receiving. "She's been praying that prayer for 6 months," Jesus said softly beside me. "The answer has been ready for 5 months and 3 weeks, but she won't stop. She won't wait. She won't give me 60 seconds of silence to actually speak." The vision shifted. A man, late 40s, in his car, worship music playing loudly. He was singing along, hands raised as much as safe driving allowed, tears on his face, genuine worship, real emotion, but underneath it I could sense his mind spinning, planning, calculating, worrying about the meeting he was driving to, rehearsing what he would say. And again I watched as a download from heaven, an actual strategy, a divine solution to the business problem that was tearing him apart, descended toward him and dissipated. It couldn't land. There was no space for it. The room in his spirit was already full of noise. "He'll lose the business," Jesus said, and his voice cracked. Not because I didn't answer, but because he never stopped moving long enough to receive the answer. The vision released me, and I gasped, suddenly back in my body, back in the cold, back in the snow with the aurora overhead. "This is what I'm trying to tell them," Jesus said, standing now, looking out over the dark valley. "This is what they're missing. They think more is better, more prayer, more worship, more activity, more service. And I'm standing here saying, wait, stop, give me 1 minute. 1 minute of actual stillness, 1 minute of true waiting, 1 minute where their spirit is positioned to actually receive, not just transmit." He turned back to me. "The enemy hasn't defeated them with persecution," he said. "He's defeated them with pace, with speed, with the inability to wait. They're so afraid of missing out, so addicted to motion, so uncomfortable with stillness, that they're literally sprinting past their own miracles." I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. "What do I tell them?" I asked. "How do I make them understand?" "Tell them what you saw," he said. "Tell them that I'm not withholding. I'm not distant. I'm not silent. But I speak in stillness. I move in the waiting. I download solutions, strategies, Healing, breakthrough, direction, in the pause, in the stop, in the minute they think they don't have time for. He looked up at the northern lights, and for a moment his face was illuminated in that otherworldly green glow. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that the verse, 'Be still and know that I am God,' isn't a suggestion. It's a mechanism. It's how I've designed the spiritual frequencies to work. Stillness isn't the absence of faith. It's the posture of receiving. And without it, they can pray all day and night and still miss what I'm trying to give them." A gust of wind hit me then, so cold and strong it nearly knocked me over. I closed my eyes against it, and when I opened them, he was gone. But the warmth in my chest remained. I stood there for another 20 minutes, maybe longer. The northern lights continued their silent dance. The cold seeped deeper into my bones. But something had shifted inside me. Something had broken open. A revelation that felt both brand new and ancient, like I was remembering something I'd always known but had forgotten. When I finally walked back to my car, my mind was reeling. My hands were shaking as I turned the key, and it wasn't from the cold. It was from the weight of what I'd just experienced, what I'd just been shown, what I'd just been commissioned to share. I'm sharing it with you now. Right now, as you watch this, I need you to understand something. This isn't about me. This isn't about the chosen. This isn't even really about that mountain pass in Jasper. This is about what Jesus is trying to tell his people in December of 2025. This is about the thing we've missed, the practice we've abandoned, the discipline we've forgotten, the ability to wait, the willingness to give him 60 seconds of undivided, undistracted, completely still attention. You think you don't have time for that. You think you're too busy. You think stillness equals laziness, equals wasted time, equals falling behind. And Jesus is weeping over you, trying to tell you that the opposite is true. That 1 minute of true waiting, of actual stillness, of positioned receiving, that 1 minute contains more breakthrough than 1,000 hours of distracted activity. But here's what I need you to know. This was only the first night. He told me to come back. He told me there was more. He told me this revelation has layers, has depth, has implications I couldn't yet imagine. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you about the second encounter, about what he showed me when I returned to that pass at 3:15 a.m. the following night, about the scroll he unrolled, about the names that were written on it, about what happens to the ones who refuse to stop, who refuse to wait, who refuse to give him that single minute. It's not what you think. It's worse than you think, and it's more hopeful than you've dared to believe. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, you're marked. You're meant to hear this. Don't walk away now. Come back tomorrow night. Give me these 4 nights, just as I gave him those 3 nights on the mountain. Something is about to break open in your life, but only if you learn to wait. Only if you give him 1 minute. Leave your prayer requests below. Subscribe if you're a true believer. And prepare yourself, because what I saw on the second night changed everything. I didn't want to go back. That's the truth I need to start with tonight. After that first encounter, after what I saw, after what he told me, every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to stay away from that mountain pass, to chalk it up to exhaustion, to cold-induced hallucination, to anything explainable, to protect myself from whatever was happening up there in that frozen darkness under the northern lights. But at 2:30 a.m. on December 11th, I found myself pulling on thermal layers again, found myself starting the car again, found myself driving that same dark highway toward Jasper, toward the pass, toward whatever was waiting for me there. The temperature had dropped even further, minus 22 degrees according to the car's display, the kind of cold that's dangerous, that can kill you if you're not careful, that makes every breath a conscious act of survival. When I pulled off at the same spot, I sat in the car for a full 5 minutes, engine running, heater blasting, trying to convince myself to turn around. But that warmth in my chest, the one that had started during the first encounter, it was burning now, insistent, urgent, like a pilot light that had suddenly flared into a flame. I turned off the engine. The silence crashed over me immediately, that same absolute, weighted silence. But tonight it felt different, expectant, like the whole mountain was holding its breath. I stepped out into the cold. The northern lights were even more spectacular than the night before. Not just green now, but ribbons of pink and purple weaving through the emerald curtains. They moved faster tonight, rippling and pulsing like a heartbeat made of light. The snow crunched under my boots with that same crystalline squeak, and my breath formed thick clouds that the cold seemed to snatch away the moment they appeared. I walked to the same clearing. The valley dropped away to my right, a vast darkness that seemed to pull at me. The pine trees stood like silent sentinels on my left, their snow-laden branches creating an impenetrable wall of shadow. Above, the stars were so bright, so numerous, they looked like someone had shattered diamonds across black velvet. And he was already there, not standing this time, sitting, on a boulder that I swear hadn't been there the night before, a large granite outcropping that rose from the snow like an ancient throne. He was looking out over the valley, his profile illuminated by the aurora's glow, and even from 20 feet away I could see his shoulders shaking. He was weeping again, harder than before. "Come, Jonathan," he said without turning. "Sit with me." I approached slowly, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The boulder was large enough for two, its surface somehow clear of snow despite the fact that everything else was buried in white. I sat beside him, and the moment I did, warmth flooded through me. That same impossible warmth and impossible cold. For a long moment we just sat there, both of us looking out over that dark valley, the northern lights dancing above us, the silence so deep it felt sacred. Then he spoke. "Do you know what I'm looking at?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "Them," he said. "All of them, every single one who calls on my name. I can see them right now, this very moment, in their beds, at their jobs, in their cars, in their churches. I can see every prayer they're praying, every need they're carrying, every breakthrough they're desperately seeking." He turned to look at me, and his eyes, God, his eyes were red from crying, swollen, devastated. "And do you know what I'm watching?" he continued, his voice breaking. "I'm watching them miss it, over and over and over. I'm watching them run right past the moments I've prepared. I'm watching them pray for things I'm actively trying to give them, but they won't stop moving long enough to receive." He stood suddenly, and as he did, he raised his hand toward the valley, and the darkness, it changed. It was no longer empty, it was filled with light, millions of points of light like a city spread across the entire expanse below us, stretching to the horizon. "Each light is one of my children," he said. "Watch." And I watched. The lights began to move, rapidly, frantically, darting and weaving and never stopping. It was dizzying to follow, chaotic, and I realized I could hear them too, not with my ears, but in my spirit. A constant hum of prayers, of requests, of pleading, of worship songs, of scripture quotations, a cacophony of spiritual noise rising from that valley like steam. "They're praying," I said. "Yes," Jesus replied. "They're praying, they're worshiping, they're serving, they're doing, but watch what happens when I answer." As I watched, other lights began to descend from above, golden lights, brilliant and pure. They moved with purpose, with direction, each one aimed at one of the frantic, moving lights below. These were answers. I knew it immediately. These were breakthroughs, healings, provisions, directions, solutions, actual responses from heaven to specific prayers. But as the golden lights descended and reached the moving lights below, nothing happened. They couldn't connect. It was like watching someone try to thread a needle while running at full speed. The golden lights would approach a moving light, try to connect, but the motion, the speed, the constant movement made it impossible. Over and over I watched answers from heaven bounce off, dissipate, fade away because the recipients were moving too fast to receive them. "No," I whispered. "No, that can't be." "It is," Jesus said, and his voice was thick with grief. "This is what I'm trying to show you. This is what I need them to understand. I'm not withholding. I'm not testing them by making them wait. I'm not playing games with their suffering. I'm actively, constantly, persistently trying to give them what they're asking for. But the spiritual laws I've built into creation require something from them." He sat back down beside me heavily, his shoulders sagging. "Stillness," he said. "Waiting. The pause. It's not about patience as a virtue. It's about creating the conditions for download. It's about positioning the spirit to receive. It's about," he struggled for the words, "it's about frequency alignment. When they're in constant motion, constant noise, constant activity, even good activity, even worship and prayer, the frequency is wrong. The channel is full of static. The connection can't be made. The vision faded, and the valley returned to darkness. But I could still see those lights in my mind, still see those golden answers bouncing off, unable to land. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded hoarse. "How long do they need to wait?" He looked at me and a sad smile crossed his face. 60 seconds, he said. 1 minute. That's all I'm asking. 1 minute of true stillness. No phone, no music, no words, no multitasking. Just them and me and silence. 1 minute for the frequency to align, for the channel to clear, for the download to complete. He stood again and began to pace, his footsteps silent on the snow. Let me show you more, he said. Let me show you specific examples. Real people, real situations, real consequences of this inability to wait. He touched my forehead, and I was somewhere else. I was standing in a hospital room. A woman in her late 50s sat beside a bed where her husband lay, unconscious, hooked to machines. She was praying, fervent, passionate prayer, speaking scripture over him, declaring healing, calling on every promise she'd ever learned. And her faith was real, her love was real, her desperation was real. But even as she prayed, her phone sat in her lap. Every 30 seconds, her eyes would flick down to it, a text, an email, a notification. She'd glance, process, sometimes respond, then return to prayer. Above her, I could see it, a golden thread of light descending from heaven, specific, targeted, carrying the exact frequency of healing her husband needed. It hovered above her, trying to land, trying to channel through her positioned faith into him. But every time she looked at her phone, the connection broke. The thread would waver, destabilize, retreat slightly. Over and over for 45 minutes, I watched this happen. The healing was there, the answer was present. But it couldn't complete the circuit because she couldn't be still for 60 seconds. She'll leave this hospital tomorrow morning, Jesus said beside me, his voice barely a whisper. She'll believe I said no. She'll question her faith. She'll wonder what she did wrong. And the tragedy is that she did nothing wrong except fail to give me one uninterrupted minute to complete what she was asking me to do. The scene shifted. A young man, mid-20s, in his apartment, on his knees, worship music playing loudly through speakers. He was seeking direction about a job offer, a relationship decision, a move across the country, big life decision. And his seeking was genuine. He wanted God's will. He was surrendered to it. But even as he knelt there, even as he worshiped, his mind was racing, planning, analyzing, playing out scenarios, weighing pros and cons. Above him, a golden scroll hovered, not metaphorical, I could actually see it, a scroll containing step-by-step direction for his next season, specific, detailed, perfect, but it couldn't unroll. Every time it started to open, his racing thoughts created a wind, an actual spiritual wind that would blow it closed again. For 20 minutes, I watched this young man beg God for direction, while the direction he was begging for floated 18 inches above his head, unable to deliver its contents. He'll make the wrong choice, Jesus said. Not because I didn't answer, not because I wasn't clear, but because he never created the stillness necessary for my answer to reach him. And that wrong choice will cost him 3 years and relationships he can't imagine, not as punishment, as consequence. The spiritual mechanism works a certain way. I can't override it just because they're too restless to engage with it properly. The scene shifted again. An older woman, 70s, in her garden, early morning. She was praying too, but differently. She knelt in the dirt beside her tomato plants, her gnarled hands resting on her thighs, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and steady, and she was silent, completely silent, not speaking, not declaring, not claiming, just waiting. As I watched, golden light descended toward her, and it landed. It poured into her like water into an empty vessel. I could see it filling her, illuminating her from within, and I could see her receiving it. Not with her mind, with her spirit. Downloads of wisdom, of knowledge, of specific direction for 7 different people she'd been praying for. After exactly 90 seconds, her eyes opened. She smiled, said one word, yes, and stood up to go inside. She'll make 7 phone calls today, Jesus said. And for the first time, his voice held something other than grief, pride, joy. Each one will be perfectly timed. Each one will carry a word, a scripture, a piece of direction that will alter a trajectory, not because she's more spiritual than the others, not because she has special access, but because she knows how to wait. She knows how to be still. She knows that I speak in the pause. The vision released me. I gasped, suddenly back in my body, back on that boulder beside Jesus, back in the -22-degree cold with the northern lights overhead. I was shaking, not from cold, from the weight of what I'd just seen. They're missing it, I said. They're all missing it. Yes, he said simply. But how do I make them understand? I asked, turning to face him fully. How do I convince people who are already so busy, already so overwhelmed, already so maxed out that they need to add one more thing? It's not adding, he interrupted gently but firmly. It's subtracting, it's removing, it's creating space. It's the opposite of one more thing. It's the one thing that makes all the other things work. He reached out and placed both hands on my shoulders. His grip was firm, real, solid. Jonathan, listen to me. The enemy's greatest victory in this generation isn't getting my people to sin. It's getting them too busy to stop, too distracted to wait, too restless to be still. He's convinced them that motion equals faith, that activity equals devotion, that busyness equals fruitfulness. And it's a lie. It's a lie that's destroying them, not because they're bad people, because they're exhausted people, running on empty, sprinting past their own breakthrough. Tears were streaming down my face now, freezing on my cheeks. What do I tell them to do? I whispered. Tell them to give me 1 minute, he said. Tomorrow night, and the next night, and the night after that. 1 minute, 60 seconds, no phone, no music, no words, just silence, just waiting, just stillness. Tell them to set a timer if they need to, because their minds won't believe a minute is just a minute. It'll feel like an eternity at first. But tell them to do it. 1 minute. Every day. Preferably first thing, before the day's noise begins. He released my shoulders and stood. And tell them this, he continued, his voice dropping lower, becoming almost ominous. Tell them there's a cost to refusing. Tell them that what I'm about to show you tomorrow night, the third night, isn't just about missed opportunities. There are consequences to this chronic inability to wait, consequences I've tried to warn them about, consequences they won't see coming because they're moving too fast to notice the warning signs. The northern lights suddenly intensified. The entire sky seemed to pulse with light, green and pink and purple, and now a deep blood red weaving through the other colors. The temperature dropped perceptibly. My breath came in sharp gasps. Come back tomorrow, Jesus said. 3 a.m., same place. What I show you then, it's not going to be easy to watch. It's not going to be comfortable to share, but it's the truth they need to hear before it's too late. A wind picked up, sudden, fierce, howling through the pass with a sound like 1,000 voices screaming. I closed my eyes against it, against the stinging snow it carried, against the sheer force of it. When I opened them, he was gone. But the red aurora remained. I've never seen the northern lights appear red before that night. I looked it up later. It's rare. It happens when solar particles interact with oxygen at very high altitudes. Scientists have an explanation for it, but I know what I saw, I know what it meant. I stumbled back to my car, my legs barely supporting me, sat in the driver's seat for 30 minutes before I could even turn the key, just staring at that red-tinged sky, thinking about those golden lights that couldn't land, about those prayers that couldn't be answered because the recipients wouldn't be still long enough to receive. I'm telling you this now, tonight, because you need to understand. This is serious. This isn't metaphor. This isn't poetic language. This is spiritual mechanics. This is how the kingdom works. And Jesus is pleading with his people to understand it before what? That's what he's going to show me tomorrow night. That's what I'm going to have to share with you. Right now, before you go to sleep tonight, I'm asking you to do something. Set your alarm for 1 minute earlier tomorrow morning. Just 1 minute. 60 seconds. And when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you start your coffee, before you do anything else, sit in silence. Give him that minute. Just try it once. See what happens. Some of you are already resisting, already thinking of reasons why you can't, why your situation is different, why you're too busy. And that resistance, that's exactly what he's talking about. That inability to stop even for 60 seconds. That's the problem. Leave your comments below. Tell me honestly, when's the last time you sat in complete silence before God for even 1 minute? Not praying at him, not reciting scripture at him, not playing worship music, just silent, just waiting, just still. The answers are going to surprise you. Tomorrow night I'll tell you about the third encounter, about what happens to the ones who refuse to wait, about the judgment that's coming, not from a vengeful God, but from natural consequences of spiritual laws they've ignored. It's the hardest thing he showed me. It's the thing I almost didn't want to share. But you're marked. You're meant to hear this. All 4 nights. Don't stop now. 1 more night. And then the solution. Be here tomorrow, 3 a.m., when he showed me what's really at stake. I almost didn't go back the third night. After what I'd seen on the second night, those golden lights unable to land, those prayers bouncing off their own targets, that red aurora streaking across the sky like a warning, I was terrified of what the third night would bring. Terrified of what he would show me, terrified of what I'd have to carry back and share with you. But at 2:45 a.m. on December 12th, that burning in my chest was no longer a flame. It was a wildfire, consuming, insistent, impossible to ignore. I couldn't have stayed away if I'd wanted to. The drive to the pass was different this time, darker somehow, even though the time was roughly the same. The stars seemed dimmer, the road seemed longer, and a sense of dread sat in my stomach like a stone, getting heavier with every mile. When I pulled off at the same spot, I sat in the car with the engine running for a long time. The temperature display read -25 degrees, the coldest night yet. Outside the windshield, the northern lights were already visible, but they were different tonight, subdued. The colors were muted, pale green, faint purple, and that same deep red I'd seen at the end of the previous night, but stronger now, like blood diffusing through water. I checked the time. 2:58 a.m. I had 2 minutes. Something told me that if I wasn't out there at exactly 3 a.m., if I wasn't in position when he appeared, I would miss something crucial, something that couldn't be repeated. I killed the engine and burst out of the car, the cold slamming into me like a physical blow. My lungs seized, my eyes watered instantly. The moisture in my nostrils froze. This was dangerous cold, the kind that kills. I ran to the clearing, my boots slipping on ice I couldn't see in the darkness, my breath coming in sharp, painful gasps. The valley yawned to my right, the pines stood sentinel to my left, and above me that red-tinged aurora pulsed slowly like a dying heartbeat. I reached the boulder, the same one where we'd sat the night before, just as my phone's alarm vibrated in my pocket. 3 a.m., and he was there. But not like before. He was standing at the very edge of the cliff, his back to me, looking out over the valley. And his posture, God help me, his posture was one of such profound sorrow that I felt it in my bones before he even turned around. His shoulders were hunched, his head was bowed, and I could hear it, even over the wind that had started to rise. He was weeping, not crying, weeping, deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they were being torn from his chest. Jesus, I whispered. He didn't turn around. Come here, Jonathan, he said, his voice barely audible. Come stand beside me. You need to see this from where I'm standing. I walked forward slowly, my heart hammering, until I stood beside him at the cliff's edge. The valley dropped away before us, disappearing into darkness. The wind was stronger here, unobstructed, cutting through every layer I wore like it was paper. Look, he said, and the darkness of the valley changed. It filled with light again, like the night before, millions of points of light representing his people. But tonight I could see more detail. I could see faces. I could see lives. I could see stories unfolding in real time across that vast expanse. These are my children, he said softly, every single one bought with my blood, every single one carrying my name, every single one believing they're walking in my will. He raised his hand, and the view zoomed closer, focusing on specific lights. Watch what happens, he said, when someone refuses to wait, when someone consistently, persistently, stubbornly refuses to give me the 1 minute I'm asking for. Watch the progression. A light appeared before us, closer than the others, almost within reaching distance. It was a woman, late 30s. I could see her entire life like a movie playing at high speed. I could see her salvation moment, see her on fire for God in her 20s, see her serving, worshiping, praying, real faith, real devotion. But I could also see the gradual shift, the cell phone becoming an extension of her hand, the worship time that always had music playing, never silence, the prayer times that happened while she drove, while she cooked, while she scrolled, never still, never quiet, never waiting. And I watched as, over months and years, the golden lights from heaven came less frequently, not because God was withdrawing, but because the connection had become so unreliable, like a phone that's constantly moving in and out of signal range. The channel was always disrupted, always interrupted, always breaking up with static. She doesn't even notice, Jesus said quietly. She still prays, she still goes to church, she still reads her Bible, while listening to podcasts, while checking email, while messaging friends. She's never not doing something, and she's convinced herself this is faith, This is diligence. This is what it means to be devoted. The view zoomed closer to the woman. I could see her face now, see her expressions, see her in her daily life, and I could see something else, a gray film starting to form around her light, thin at first, almost imperceptible, but growing. "What is that?" I asked, pointing at the gray film. Jesus' jaw tightened. "Spiritual deafness," he said. "It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, a little more each day, each time they refuse to be still, each time they fill the silence I'm trying to speak into, each time they sprint past a moment I've prepared. The frequency alignment becomes harder, the connection becomes weaker, and eventually..." The gray film thickened, darkened, until the woman's light was completely encased in it, like a cocoon, and the golden lights from heaven, they stopped coming. Not because God had given up, but because there was no longer any way for them to penetrate, no way to connect, no way to land. "No," I breathed. "Yes," Jesus said, and his voice broke. "This is what I'm trying to warn them about. This is the consequence I'm trying to help them avoid. Not punishment, Jonathan, consequence. When you consistently refuse to create space for me to speak, eventually your ability to hear atrophies, the spiritual ears close, the frequency becomes permanently misaligned, and you end up..." He gestured to the valley, and suddenly I could see thousands of lights encased in that same gray film. Thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, all of them still praying, still worshiping, still serving, still believing, but completely unable to hear, completely unable to receive, completely cut off from the very breakthrough they were desperately seeking. "They're in churches," Jesus continued, his voice gaining intensity. "They're in ministry, they're leading worship teams, teaching Bible studies, running prayer groups, and they haven't heard my actual voice in years. They're operating on old revelation, old encounters, old direction, and they don't even know it because they're too busy, too noisy, too restless to notice the silence." The vision shifted again. Now I was seeing a church, large, packed with people, worship team on stage, lights flashing, music thundering, everyone on their feet, hands raised, singing passionately. And above the building, I could see golden light trying to descend, a corporate breakthrough, a regional shift, an outpouring that was meant for this moment, but it couldn't land. The noise was too great. Not the musical noise, the spiritual noise. Hundreds of people all transmitting but none receiving, all speaking but none listening, all declaring but none waiting. The golden light hovered above the building for the entire 2-hour service, trying to find an entry point, trying to find one person who was still enough, quiet enough, positioned enough to receive it and channel it to the others. It never found one. As the service ended and people filed out to their cars, still talking, still on their phones, still planning their next activity, the golden light slowly retreated back to heaven, undelivered. The breakthrough they'd been begging for, literally hovering over them for 2 hours, returned to the throne room because there was no one who could receive it. "How many times?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "How many times does this happen?" Jesus turned to look at me, and his face, I'll never forget his face in that moment. The anguish, the frustration, the desperate love. "Every single day," he said, "in thousands of churches, millions of individual believers. Corporate breakthroughs that can't land because no one is still. Regional shifts that can't happen because everyone is moving too fast. Generational healing that's right there, ready, prepared, but can't download because the recipients won't stop for 60 seconds. He turned back to the valley, and the view pulled back, showing the full scope again. All those millions of lights, and all those thousands upon thousands encased in gray. "And here's what breaks my heart most," he continued, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "They're going to stand before me one day, and they're going to ask me why I didn't answer their prayers, why I didn't bring breakthrough, why I didn't heal their marriages, fix their finances, deliver their children, open the doors they were knocking on, and I'm going to have to show them." He gestured, and suddenly I could see it. Throne room, countless people standing before Jesus in pure white, and as each one asked their questions, he would replay their life, show them every golden light that descended, every answer that was prepared, every breakthrough that was ready, and every single time they were too busy, too distracted, too restless to receive it. I watched person after person see their own life from heaven's perspective, see the moments they prayed desperately for something while the answer floated 18 inches from their head, See the divine appointments they rushed past. See the downloads they interrupted. See the breakthrough they were literally standing in the middle of but couldn't perceive because they wouldn't be still for 1 minute. And the look on their faces, the devastation, the disbelief, the regret, it was unbearable. Stop, I said, turning away. Please, I can't. You have to, Jesus said firmly, gripping my arm. You have to see it. You have to understand what's at stake. Because this isn't about 1 minute for its own sake. This isn't about adding another religious practice. This is about them receiving what they're asking for. This is about breakthrough actually landing. This is about the difference between a life lived connected to the vine and a life lived on fumes, exhausted, wondering why nothing works anymore. The vision released, and we were back on the cliff, the cold wind howling around us, the red aurora pulsing overhead. Jesus stepped away from the edge and walked back toward the boulder. He sat down heavily, his head in his hands. Tell them, he said without looking up. Tell them that I'm not withholding. Tell them that I'm not playing games. Tell them that the breakthrough they've been praying for, some of them for years, is ready. It's prepared. It's waiting. But it requires something from them. He looked up at me. Stillness. Waiting. 1 minute. 60 seconds where they stop transmitting and start receiving. Where they stop talking at me and start listening to me. Where they stop filling the silence with noise and start creating space for my voice. He stood and walked over to me, placing his hands on either side of my face. His palms were warm, impossibly warm in that killing cold. And tell them this, he said, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Tell them that the verse in Matthew 7 that terrifies everyone, "Depart from me, I never knew you," isn't always about false converts and fake faith. Sometimes it's about people who were so busy doing things for me that they never stopped long enough to actually be with me, to know me, to let me know them. They served me but never sat with me. They worked for me but never waited with me. And on that day when I say, I never knew you, what I'm saying is, you never gave me the space to know you. You never stopped. You never waited. You never let me in past the noise. He released my face and I staggered backward, my mind reeling. But there's hope, he said, his voice softening. There's still time. That's why I'm showing you this. That's why you're going to share this. Because the gray film, it can be dissolved. The spiritual deafness, it can be healed. The connection, it can be restored. But only if they stop. Only if they wait. Only if they give me 1 minute. He looked up at the sky. The red in the aurora was fading now, the green and purple returning stronger. The wind was dying down. The temperature felt less brutal, though the display on my phone would later tell me it was still -25. Tomorrow night, he said, final night, same time. I'm going to give you the prescription, the specific instructions, the 30-day challenge that will change everything for those who actually do it. And I'm going to tell you what happens, both to those who accept the challenge and those who refuse it. He stepped closer to me one more time, more. What you saw tonight, it's the warning. Tomorrow night is the way forward. Make sure they understand both. Make sure they know what they're choosing between. Thunder cracked overhead, actual thunder in -25-degree weather, something that shouldn't be possible. The northern lights flared brilliant green, so bright it cast shadows on the snow. And in that moment of illumination, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. There were footprints in the snow all around the clearing, hundreds of them, thousands of them, converging on this spot from every direction, and every single set of footprints stopped at the edge of the clearing, except mine. What? I started to ask, but he was already fading. Tomorrow, his voice echoed. Come back tomorrow. Don't leave them with just the warning. Give them the hope. And then I was alone. I stood there shaking, not from cold, but from the weight of what I'd seen, what I'd been told, what I was now responsible for sharing. Those gray encased lights, those unanswered prayers that had been answered but couldn't be received. Those faces in the throne room, devastated by the realization of what they'd missed. The walk back to my car felt like it took hours. My legs were weak, my mind was spinning, and in my spirit I could still see it, those thousands of lights wrapped in gray, still praying, still seeking, completely unaware that they'd lost the ability to hear the very voice they were calling out for. I'm sharing this with you tonight because you need to know what's at stake. This isn't about legalism. This isn't about earning God's favor. This isn't about one more thing to feel guilty about. This is about breakthrough, about receiving what you've been asking for, about hearing the voice you've been desperate to hear, about connecting with the God you claim to serve. And it requires something so simple, so basic, so seemingly insignificant that most of you will dismiss it. 1 minute, 60 seconds, complete stillness, no phone, no music, no words, just you and him and silence. Can you do it? Can you give him 1 minute tomorrow morning before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you start your coffee, before you begin your day? Can you sit in complete silence for 60 seconds? Most of you are already thinking of reasons why you can't, why your situation is different, why you're too busy, why you'll do it later, why you'll start next week. And that resistance, that inability to stop even for 1 minute, that's exactly what he's talking about. That's the gray film beginning to form. Tomorrow night, I'll share the final encounter, the solution, the specific 30-day challenge he gave me, the promise of what happens when you actually do this, and the warning of what happens if you refuse. This is the third night. One more to go. Don't stop now. Not when you're this close to understanding what could change everything. Leave your comments. Tell me honestly, did this convict you? Did this scare you? Did this make you angry? I want to know where you are right now because tomorrow night's message is going to meet you there. Be here tomorrow. 3 a.m. story time, when he gives us the way forward, when he shows us how to break through the gray. One more night. See you there. The fourth night almost didn't happen. Not because I didn't want to go back, but because everything in the natural realm seemed designed to stop me. My car wouldn't start at first. When it finally did, the check engine light came on. The highway had patches of black ice I hadn't encountered the previous nights. Twice I nearly turned back, convinced I was going to wreck, that this was foolish, that I'd already gotten the message and didn't need to push my luck. But that fire in my chest, the one that had been burning for 3 nights, it was different now. It wasn't consuming anymore. It was focusing, concentrating. Like all that heat and energy was being compressed into a single point of brilliant, urgent intensity. I had to go back. I had to hear the rest. When I pulled off at the pass, it was 2:52 a.m. on December 13th. The temperature had risen, only minus 12 degrees now, which felt almost warm after the previous nights. The northern lights were spectacular again, but different than any night before. No red, just pure, brilliant green and violet, moving in perfect, synchronized waves across the entire dome of the sky. Beautiful, hopeful, like creation itself was holding its breath for what was about to be spoken. I walked to the clearing, and this time I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Whatever he was going to tell me, whatever he was going to show me, whatever I was going to have to carry back and share, I was ready. He was standing in the center of the clearing, not at the cliff's edge this time, and he wasn't weeping. He was smiling, a gentle, knowing smile that radiated warmth even in the cold. His arms were open, and the moment I stepped into the clearing, he stepped forward and embraced me. I felt it then, a download, not of information, but of love. Pure, undiluted, overwhelming love. The kind that makes you realize how pale and shallow every human experience of love is in comparison. I started weeping immediately, not from grief but from the sheer intensity of being fully known and fully loved simultaneously. "Thank you," he whispered into my ear. "Thank you for coming back. Thank you for being willing to see. Thank you for being willing to share, even when it's hard, even when they won't all receive it." He released me and stepped back, his hands on my shoulders. "Tonight, we finish this," he said. "Tonight, I give you the solution, the way forward, the specific instructions for those who are ready to break through the gray, to restore the connection, to position themselves to actually receive what they've been asking for." He gestured to the boulder, and we both sat. The aurora danced above us, the stars blazed, and the silence was profound, but not heavy anymore. Expectant, pregnant with possibility. "Here's what I want you to tell them," he began, word for word. "Are you ready?" I nodded, pulling out my phone to record his words in my notes app. My fingers were clumsy in the cold, but I managed. "The 30-day 1-minute challenge," he said. "Starting tomorrow, December 11th, for you watching this video, whatever date that is for you, I want every person who's serious about breakthrough to commit to this. For 30 days. No exceptions, no skipping, no making up for missed days, 30 consecutive days." He held up one finger. "Every morning, before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you start coffee, before you shower, before you speak to anyone, you will sit in complete silence before me for 1 minute. 60 seconds. Set a timer if you need to. Most of you will need to because your minds won't believe how long a minute actually is when you're doing nothing. He held up a second finger. During that minute, no words, no prayers, no music, no reciting scripture, no making declarations, nothing. You will simply sit in my presence and wait. You are not transmitting during this minute. You are receiving. You are positioning. You are creating space. Your job is to be still and know that I am God, not know about me, but know me. Experience my presence. Let me look at you. Let me love you. Let me speak if I choose to speak. He held up a third finger. After the minute ends and only after the full 60 seconds, then you pray, then you worship, then you read scripture, then you start your day, but that 1 minute belongs to stillness, to waiting, to receiving, no matter what. He lowered his hand and looked at me intently. That's it, Jonathan. That's the whole challenge. 1 minute, 60 seconds, every morning for 30 days. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you my word to share with them, that if they do this faithfully for 30 consecutive days, they will experience breakthrough in at least 3 specific areas they've been praying about. Not maybe, not possibly, will, because they'll finally be positioned to receive what I've been trying to give them. He stood and walked toward the cliff's edge, looking out over the valley. The view changed again, those millions of lights representing his people. But this time, I could see golden threads descending to many of them, connecting, landing, completing circuits, breakthrough happening in real time. These are the ones who learned to wait, he said softly, the ones who stopped long enough to receive, and watch what happens. As I watched, the lights that had received golden threads began to glow brighter, and that brightness spread to family members, to co-workers, to friends, to strangers. One person's breakthrough became a catalyst for dozens of others. One person's willingness to wait created a ripple effect that touched hundreds. This is what I'm trying to tell them, Jesus said, turning back to me. It's not just about their individual breakthrough, though. That matters to me desperately. It's about the corporate effect, the generational shift, the regional transformation. When my people learn to be still again, when they recover the lost art of waiting, when they position themselves to actually receive, everything changes, not just for them, but for everyone their life touches. He walked back and sat beside me again. But I need you to tell them the other side too, he said, his voice becoming more serious. Tell them what happens if they refuse, if they hear this message and dismiss it, if they think they're too busy, too advanced, too anointed to need something this simple. The valley view shifted. I could see other lights, the ones still encased in gray, and as I watched, the gray grew thicker, darker, and the people represented by those lights, I could see their lives unfolding, marriages failing not because God didn't provide solutions, but because the solutions couldn't land, businesses collapsing not because God didn't send strategies, but because the owners were moving too fast to receive them, children wandering, not because God didn't offer guidance, but because parents were too distracted to hear it. The gray doesn't stop growing, Jesus said quietly. Not on its own. It continues to thicken every time they choose motion over stillness, noise over silence, activity over waiting. And eventually, he paused, his jaw tightening. Eventually, they become exactly what Jesus warned about in Matthew 13, seeds sown among thorns. The word gets choked out by the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of busyness. They don't lose their salvation, but they lose their effectiveness. They lose their joy. They lose their sense of my presence, and they spend years wondering why, never realizing it's because they wouldn't give me 1 minute. He stood again, and this time he pulled me to my feet. Tell them this is their moment, he said urgently. Tell them that what's happening right now, as they watch this video, as they hear these words, this is a divine appointment. I've orchestrated this. I've brought them to this message at this exact time because their breakthrough is ready. It's prepared. It's hovering over them right now, but they have to choose to position themselves to receive it. The aurora overhead suddenly intensified, the green becoming so vivid it seemed almost solid, like I could reach up and touch it. The temperature rose perceptibly, the wind died completely, and in that moment of perfect stillness, I heard it. Music. Not with my ears, but in my spirit. The sound of heaven, worship so pure, so beautiful, it made every human worship song I'd ever heard sound like noise in comparison. Do you hear that? Jesus asked, tilting his head upward. Yes, I breathed. That's what they're missing, he said. That's what plays constantly in the background of my presence, but they can't hear it because they've never stopped long enough to tune in. That's what 1 minute of stillness opens their ears to, not every time, but increasingly, as they practice, as they position, as they make space. The music faded and he turned to face me fully. "It's time for you to go," he said. "Time for you to take this message back. But before you do, I want to pray for you. I want to commission you for this. Will you kneel?" I dropped to my knees in the snow immediately. He placed both hands on my head, and heat flooded through my entire body. Not uncomfortable heat, life-giving heat, energizing heat. And he began to speak, not in English, but in a language I didn't recognize. Tongues, maybe, or the language of heaven. I don't know. But I felt every word, felt them sinking into my spirit like seeds being planted. When he finished, he helped me to my feet. "Go now," he said. "Share this. Give them the 30-day challenge. Tell them I'll meet every single person who actually does it. I'll show up in that 1 minute. Maybe not the first day, maybe not the second, but somewhere in those 30 days, I will manifest my presence in a way they can't deny, can't explain, can't forget, and that encounter will change everything." He started to fade, but then paused, solidifying again. "One more thing," he said. "Give them a deadline. Tell them they need to start the challenge within 7 days of watching this video. Not because I'm arbitrary, not because I'm playing games, but because urgency matters. The enemy will convince them to start next week, next month, when things calm down, but things never calm down. They have to choose it. Now, while the conviction is fresh, while the fire is hot, tell them 7 days to start, then 30 consecutive days of 1 minute. That's the challenge." This time when he faded, he didn't return. And I was alone in the clearing, the northern lights dancing overhead, the snow crunching under my boots as I turned to walk back to my car. That was 3 weeks ago, as I'm recording this. I want to tell you what's happened since I accepted the challenge myself, because I'd be a hypocrite to share this with you without doing it personally. Every morning for 21 days now, I've set my alarm for 1 minute earlier. I sit on the edge of my bed in the dark. I set a timer on my phone for 60 seconds, and I sit in complete silence. No words, no prayers, no music, just stillness. The first week was excruciating. My mind raced, my body itched to move. The 60 seconds felt like 60 minutes. I'd check the timer after what I was sure was 45 seconds to find only 12 had passed. I felt stupid, I felt restless, I felt like I was wasting time, but I kept doing it. Second week, something shifted. The minutes started to feel shorter. My mind started to settle more quickly, and on day 9, I felt it. His presence. Not dramatically, not with visions or thunder or voices, just a gentle warmth, a sense of being seen, a whisper in my spirit. "I'm here. I've always been here. Thank you for finally being still enough to notice." I wept, right there on the edge of my bed, 60-second timer still running, tears streaming down my face, because I realized how much I'd been missing, how much noise I'd been living in, how rare it was for me to actually stop. Third week, this week, 3 specific breakthroughs have happened. A relationship that had been strained for 8 months was suddenly, inexplicably healed. A financial provision came from a source I never would have predicted, and a direction about a project I've been stuck on for over a year became crystal clear, not during the 1 minute, but later that day, like the stillness had cleared the channel and the download came when I wasn't even specifically asking for it. This works. I'm telling you, this works. Not because it's magic, not because 60 seconds has some mystical power, but because Jesus was telling the truth. Stillness creates the condition for receiving. Waiting positions the spirit for download. 1 minute of undivided attention opens frequencies that hours of distracted activity can't access. So here's what I'm asking you to do, what he's asking you to do. The 30-day 1-minute challenge, starting tomorrow morning, or within 7 days of watching this video. Set your alarm for 1 minute earlier than usual. Before you do anything else, before phone, coffee, shower, speaking to anyone, sit somewhere comfortable. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Sit in complete silence. No words, no music, no prayers. Just wait. Just be still. Just let him look at you. When the timer goes off, then pray, worship, read scripture, continue your normal routine. Do this every single day for 30 consecutive days. If you miss a day, start over at day 1. This isn't about legalism. It's about consistency, creating a new neural pathway, a new spiritual habit. Write down the date you're starting this challenge. That date plus 30 days is your completion date. On that completion date, come back to this video and leave a comment telling me what happened. what broke through, what shifted, what you experienced. I'm going to make a bold promise, and I'm making it on his authority, based on what he told me. If you do this faithfully for 30 consecutive days, you will experience breakthrough in at least 3 specific areas you've been praying about. You will hear his voice more clearly. You will sense his presence more tangibly, and you will look back at this moment as a turning point. But only if you actually do it. Only if you stop dismissing this as too simple. Only if you overcome the resistance that's already rising in you right now, telling you this won't work, you don't have time, you'll start next week, you're already doing enough. That resistance, that's the enemy. That's the gray film trying to stay in place. That's your flesh that's terrified of actually being still, because stillness exposes things we've been running from. Push through it. Just 30 days. Just 1 minute per day. What do you have to lose? I went back to that mountain pass yesterday morning. During daylight this time. I wanted to see it in full sun, wanted to process everything that had happened there over those 4 nights. The clearing looked different in daylight. Smaller somehow, more ordinary. Just snow and rock and pine trees. The valley stretched out below. Beautiful, but not supernatural. The northern lights were gone, of course. Just blue sky and white clouds. But standing there, I could still feel it. The weight of what had been spoken in that place. The urgency of the message I'd been given to share. And as I stood at the edge of that cliff looking out over the valley, I realized something. That valley full of lights, that wasn't just a vision. That was you. That's all of us. Millions of believers, all praying, all seeking, all desperate for breakthrough. And Jesus, standing on the cliff of heaven, looking down at us with love and grief, watching us rush past our own miracles because we won't be still for 60 seconds. He's not withholding. He's not distant. He's not silent. He's speaking. He's answering. He's releasing breakthrough, but it requires something from us. 1 minute. That's all. 1 minute that could save your marriage. 1 minute that could open the door you've been knocking on for years. 1 minute that could heal the relationship you thought was dead. 1 minute that could break the spiritual deafness you didn't even know you had. 1 minute that could change everything. Will you give it to him? Leave your comments below. Tell me, what date are you starting the challenge? What 3 specific areas are you believing for breakthrough in? What's your biggest resistance to this? What's making you hesitate? Be honest. I want to know where you're really at, because your honesty is the first step toward breakthrough. Subscribe to this channel if you're actually going to do this challenge. Let's identify the remnant. Let's find the ones who are done with business as usual, done with distracted Christianity, done with wondering why nothing seems to work anymore. Set a reminder on your phone right now for 30 days from tomorrow. On that date, come back here and testify. Tell us what happened. Let your breakthrough encourage others who are in the middle of their 30 days. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been praying for breakthrough for months or years, someone who's exhausted and confused and wondering why God feels distant, share this video with them. Tag them in the comments. Send them the link. This might be the divine appointment they've been waiting for. The sun was setting when I left that mountain pass yesterday. The sky was turning pink and orange and purple, natural colors this time, not aurora. And as I drove away, I realized that those 4 nights in the cold, those encounters that terrified and transformed me, those visions that I'll carry for the rest of my life, they weren't really for me. They were for you. You who are watching this right now. You who made it all the way to the end of this message. You who are marked, chosen, positioned for breakthrough if you'll just be willing to stop. Jesus is asking you for 1 minute, not because he's needy, not because he's petty, not because he's testing you, but because that 1 minute is the key that unlocks everything else. That 1 minute is the pause that changes the trajectory. That 1 minute is the stillness where heaven and earth connect and breakthrough becomes possible. Will you give it to him starting tomorrow for 30 days? The clock starts now. The challenge is issued. The breakthrough is ready. All that's left is your choice. Choose stillness, choose waiting, choose 1 minute, and watch what he does with it. I'll see you in the comments. I'll see you in 30 days when you come back to testify. And I'll see you on the other side of breakthrough. It's time. Wait, give him 1 minute. It could save you.